Hello, everyone. I am back with chapter 23 of System Synthesis, titled And It Clings to Me Like a Shadow. I'm sorry, Isuku whined while nibbling on his fifth berry flavored energy bar. It's just regeneration takes away a lot of my energy to heal me, and it makes me really hungry afterwards. Plus, I haven't been able to eat since I woke up. Why were you soaking wet? His mom asked. Itsuki recalled the way he almost drowned at the very last moment, just after his progress was complete. He hadn't realized when his progress started rising at a steady rate, too concentrated on making the imaginary fire in his mind burn brighter and stronger. The ping from the progress bar being completely filled had startled him, and when he realized his penalty was finally completed, he got a little too excited and lost his foothold. The strong current of the river wasted no time in dragging him with it. If it wasn't for the system's automatic system to transfer him back after the penalty was over, he might have died. So is anyone going to tell me what the ever-loving Dabi stopped when Asuku's mom glared at him and quickly corrected himself. So, what's going on? Where did you disappear off to? And why did you come back 5 minutes away from being a human popsicle? Itsuku glanced at his dad. I didn't say anything until now, Shoto replied, shifting until he could rest his plastered arms. Itsuku blinked and then blinked again. Why are you just handing over such an important decision to me? Say something. And his dad, much to his desperation, only looked away, staring at the bedside table. Then he looked at his mom, but she was more busy fussing over his health than the internal mini crisis in his mind. Itsuku made a slightly offended noise before turning back to Hawks and Dabi. Recovery Girl had left a little earlier after making sure Isuku wasn't at an immediate danger of dying or had any serious injuries. It's not that he didn't trust the Hawks and Dobby enough to share the truth about his quirk, it's just that he hadn't talked to anyone apart from his dad about it. It was 'cause of my quirk, Isuku pathetically mumbled, stuffing the rest of the energy bar in his mouth so he could get an extra few seconds to come up with a proper sentence in his mind. Oh yeah, no. Dobby shook his head. You use that excuse to get away with too many things. None of your quirks, he made exaggerated air quotes, are related to each other, and none of it makes sense. I finished eating the energy bar. Itsuku licked the crumbs off his lips and fiddled with his fingers. But I'm telling the truth, though, Itsuku pouted. He took a deep breath and sat up straighter. His dad's silence probably meant he left the entire discussion to disclose his secret to him. And his mom was... Itsuku glanced at her still panicked posture and decided to let it be. My quirk is called a system synthesis, Itsuku started. The best way to describe it is... It's like an RPG. You know how the character in games like that have a status profile and sets of skills they can learn and level up? Hawks frowned. Yeah? My quirk is basically that, but as for the skills, there's no preset to what I can learn. Or so far. I have two different kinds of skills, just like the games. Passive and active skills. Passive skills are the ones that activate by themselves, and active skills are something I have to manually activate. Dabby crossed his arms across his chest and leaned his body forward. What? Itsugu let out an awkward chuckle and scratched his cheek. Yeah, like, he paused, realizing he hadn't yet checked his profile after regeneration had healed all the injuries he got from hitting the rock because of the water current. Can you give me a minute? Itsuku requested. I need to check my profile. Don't tell me you leveled up again. Shota looked at him. Itsuku considered it. I'm not sure. Biased, Shota muttered before looking away. although he was yet to move away even an inch from where he had settled himself right next to Isugu. Open status. Isugu said out loud. System online. Congratulations, your skill fire breathing has leveled up. Congratulations, your skill analytic mind has leveled up. Congratulations, your skill selective focus has leveled up. Congratulations, your skill concentration has leveled up. Congratulations, your skill strategize has leveled up. Congratulations, your skill heat resistance has leveled up. Congratulations, your skill cold resistance has leveled up. Congratulations, your skill Dragon's Domain has leveled up. Congratulations, your skill Empathy has leveled up. You can now connect to 3 people at once. And the range for connection has also increased. Itsuka was a little surprised to see Dragon's Domain in a list of skills that leveled up. He had expected it to be difficult to raise the level of, just like fire breathing. It also started at level 0, just like the main skill had. Though despite the level up, he had no idea when or how he got it, or how it works. Right, so he looked at Hawks and Dobby before activating Empathy and connected the Hawks and Dobby. This is one of my active skills, Empathy. Dobby jumped in surprise, and if Hawks was surprised too, he didn't let it show. You can use telepathy, Dobby asked in disbelief. It's, empathy, Isugu corrected. Along with the thoughts, I can feel their emotions. He bit the inside of his cheek as he recalled the horrifying feeling he had felt earlier. The feeling of the connection being ripped apart forcefully was still fresh in his mind. Subconsciously, Isugu moved a little closer to his dad until his arm bumped against his. He shook his head to get rid of the painful memory and looked back at Dobby. Hawks and Dobby. Not now, not now, not now, please. He deactivated his skill before Hawks and Dobby felt his anxiousness. And, some of my other active skills are pool, like the quirk mom has, but a bit different. And it's not just limited to small objects. And the other skill is fire breathing, which Isuku frowned. I got from my... He looked away from his mom and mumbled, sperm donor. Isuku! His mom immediately exclaimed, You shouldn't say that! That's not nice, sweetie. What? Isuku raised his shoulders defensively. I just call him as what he is, the sperm donor. So he did say that. Say it. I thought I heard him wrong. Shota mumbled. Shota, say something! His mom looked at him. Shota blinked, taking 3 whole seconds before realizing he's supposed to scold Isugu or something along the lines of it. Isugu, you shouldn't call Hisashi that. Hisashi? Is that what his name is? I didn't know that. Isugu mumbled. His mom did not look happy with either of them, but Isugu wasn't about the calm man that was absent since he was born, his dad, or anything similar. He has a dad, and he's right next to him. Wait, okay, so you have a freakishly overpowered quirk, but how does that relate to you disappearing for hours? Hawks asked. So some of my skills are really strong, and my body currently isn't strong enough to handle its entire power. And also because in order to level up, I need to work hard, so I get a set of daily tasks that I need to complete before midnight, and if I don't, then I get a penalty. It can be anything. How did you manage to do this as a kid? Dobby asked, concerned. Isuku pressed his lips together in a thin line and glanced at his mom and Shota. He established a teleempathetic connection with his dad, subconsciously letting out a relieved sigh as his dad's presence enveloped his mind. Tension he didn't know he had in his body melted away. Should I tell them? It's your decision, Suku. If you don't want to, you don't have to. Itsuku pulled and tugged his fingers as he considered it. Deep in his thought, he didn't realize when he started pulling with a little too much strength until he felt something heavy and solid hit his head. Ow! Itsuku rubbed the part of his head Shota had hit with his plastered hand. Don't overthink. Itsuku glanced at his mother. She gave him a comforting, warm smile to encourage him. I was declared quirkless when I was 4, so I didn't have to do any penalties as a kid. He finished with a nervous laugh, scared of the reaction he might get. There was a short period of silence that felt too long and too short at the same time. Then how did you get your quirk? Dobby asked. Itsuka whipped his head up, eyes wide with surprise. What did you think we're going to say? Dobby asked. He rubbed the back of his head and said, I know I'm not the best person you know of, but I'm not an asshole that thinks quirkless people shouldn't exist. Itsuku looked at Hawk. The number 3 hero shrugged. Man, I didn't even think heroes were a real thing until I was 7. What? Dobby turned his head towards him. Long story. Hawk shrugged. Anyways, Dobby turned his attention back to Itsuku. If you were quirkless, how did you get a quirk? It turned out to be a false negative? My quirk apparently manifested when I was 4, but didn't activate because I wasn't old enough to understand. However, due to a life or death situation during the sled spinning incident, it got triggered? Is it just me, or do you get into far too many life and death situations than you should? Dobby mumbled. Yes, please tell him to stay away from dangerous situations, his mother added. Mom, Itsuku whined. Well, he understood that his mother was worried about him, how he could stay away from people when they were in danger right in front of him. Moreover, the last 2 times weren't even that bad. The people he was protecting were safe. They were fine. Itsuku glanced at the plasters around his dad's arm and the bandages covering his face and body. He turned his gaze away as tears stung his eyes. How could he stay away? How could he even look away when people were in danger? How could he have just stood by and done nothing? His dad could have died. Itsuku flinched slightly when he heard his dad's voice in his mind, before realizing he hadn't deactivated the telepathy connection, subconsciously wanting to stay enveloped by his dad's presence in his mind. What's wrong? Itsuku knew he couldn't lie. He could feel the concern bubbling in his dad's chest through the connection, could feel the slight anxiety in him. It was a weird feeling. Sure, Itsuku had learnt the hard way that heroes are but humans like him. They hurt and they bleed. But it's so much different when it involves one's parents. It feels so much from Earth, so much more earth-shattering and incredulous knowing his dad was scared. But despite the fear and anxiousness, his mind was still steady and tranquil like an ocean, and Itsuku knew he was safe. Nothing? Itsuku answered because he genuinely didn't know what was wrong. He had no idea why there was an uneasy feeling in his stomach, or why his chest felt heavy like there was a boulder on top of him. Itsuku flinched slightly, alarmed and panicked when the door slid open once again. Then, Recovery Girl walked into the room. Don't mind me, I just need to grab some ice packs. Was it Vlad? Shota asked. It was. Recovery Girl answered, sounding done with her life and job. Shota snickered while Recovery Girl threw him an unimpressed look before walking out of the infirmary once again. I still find it so surprising when Sour laughs, Hawks muttered. Well, I am human, so I don't know why people think I don't laugh, he said, sliding off the bed and heading to the door. Itsuku panicked momentarily before realizing that the connection would cut off, before realizing that the radius of the skill's field had increased. Despite it, Isugu said softly in his mind. Please don't go too far away. Don't worry, I'm just going to get some jelly pouches. You want some? Strawberry flavored. I knew you were my favorite kid for a reason. But I'm your only kid. Irrelevant. Also, Hawks, don't call me Aizawa. It's weird to hear my surname when I'm with my family. Shota muttered, displeased and somewhat irritated as he walked out of the room. There was silence for a short while after the door closed, before Hawks asked in a trembling voice, Did he just call me family? His lips quivered. Are you crying? Dobby asked. No, 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 Hawks replied, shaking his head, even though his nose and cheeks were slowly turning red. I'm not crying, you are. You're adorable. Ew, Mom, they're being gross again. Itsuku complained. Oh, sweetie, let them be, his mom replied, waving her hand dismissively. Itsuku pouted. This is why I complained to Dad. Complain what? Oh, right, you can hear me. Dad, Dobby and Hawks are being gross again. Kick 'em out. Itsuku giggled. Just the reply he wanted. Itsuku had expected UA to declare a holiday after the USJ attack, but unfortunately they didn't. When he heard the reason, he did quite understand the reason, if not completely agree with it. UA was a stronghold for training students. No one unintended could enter without Nezu knowing, and yet more than 50 villains had infiltrated and attacked a group of students. If the news of it came out to the public, it was going to be chaos. A place as safe and sound as UA couldn't afford to lose that image. Isuku also had an inkling of doubt that the school body was somehow being pressured by the Hero Commission, because there was no way they didn't learn of the attack while two of their top heroes worked here. However, for the students who were attacked, their parents were involved and they were not happy. They were given the permission to take leave for a few days if they would like. Itsuku wasn't sure about the rest, but he wasn't taking any leaves. He couldn't stay at home all by himself while the terror from the USJ attack clung to him like a shadow. At school, he was with Dad, Hawks, and All Might. It was safe. They were safe. Luckily for him, Katsuki seemed to have similar thoughts, since he was the first person he saw apart from his family on the day after. From the deep frown etched on his face and the waves of irritants rolling off of him, Isugu knew his best friend had been terrified because of what happened. It was one of Katsuki's idiosyncrasies. Whenever he felt scared or helpless, he grew extremely irritated. He hated the feeling of not being able to do anything, not being strong enough to fight. What the fuck is wrong with you? Katsuki spat the moment he saw him. How the fuck do you always get into trouble? Why the fuck were you unconscious for a whole day? Who the fuck do you think you are, huh? Itsuki smiled. I'm sorry, Kachan. Shut the fuck up, loser. Katsuki grumbled. He clicked his tongue, popping a few small explosions on his palm, before stuffing his hands into his pocket and looking. Itsuku, well, a few seconds, and just like he expected, Katsuki asked with his frown still present on his face, are you okay? Yeah, Itsuku nodded. Itsuku was sure Katsuki wanted to know how he healed so quickly. Itsuku himself wasn't sure how badly he had been injured, given the huge chunk of his memory was missing from the day before. But he assumed it was bad enough. His dad, Hawks, Hisashi, and All Might all had been worried for him. He considered telling Katsuki the truth about his quirk. He was his best friend after all, and Katsuki had never spilled his secrets to anyone before. Him being quirkless doesn't count. It wasn't a secret to begin with. Oi, nerd. I have questions, and you better answer them, Katsuki threatened. And there it is. Sure, Kachan, Itsuku chirped. Well, Sugu wanted nothing more than to run from every conversation that included the USJ, because thinking about the USJ attack meant thinking about the way his dad lay limp on the ground surrounded by blood, on the verge of dying, and Isuku couldn't bear to think about it without having a panic attack. Katsuki deserved to know the truth. He had put up with all the trouble Isuku ever caused. Surprisingly, everyone had decided to come to school. Isuku had expected at least some of them to be taken in absence, but no one did. He had no idea how they convinced their parents, but he was glad everyone seemed okay. The moment they walked into the class and noticed them, they all fussed over him. So many questions about his health and condition were thrown his way. Isuku wouldn't lie, he did feel a little overwhelmed, while feeling extremely touched by their worry. He would have cried if Katsuki hadn't yelled at the rest to shut up because they were being too loud. Katsuki had taken the truth of his quirk better than Isuku expected. Honestly, Isuku was expecting Katsuki to be mad for having a quirk like this, but if anything, Katsuki just shrugged and said, "That makes sense. I'm still going to be better than you, though." "Midoriya, good morning," Ida greeted as he walked into the class. Then he frowned. "Should you be here? You were gravely injured yesterday." Ichigo pointed towards his body and said, "All healed." Still, as if on cue, Uraka walked in. The moment she saw him sitting in class, her face lit up. She rushed her way over to his desk, earning a curse from Katsuki, which she entirely ignored. "Oh my god, Midoriya, I'm so glad you're okay. You are okay, right?" "Yes," Isuku nodded, failing to not match her enthusiasm. "All healed. Recovery Girl is amazing." "You were so amazing yesterday, Midoriya," Uraka chirped happily, tossing her bag towards her seat and failing by a whole foot. "Sorry, Kirishima." "It's fine," Kirishima replied. "Didn't hurt." Uraka looked apologetic until Kirishima hurted his skin in winks. Uraka giggled and turned her attention back to Isuku. "I really didn't do much," Isuku said, chuckling awkwardly. "What are you talking about, Midoriya?" Uraka exclaimed. "The way you beat up all the villains was amazing." "Yeah," Kaminori joined in. "You were so cool, like a hero straight out of a movie. And then at the end, you were standing there protecting Sensei, Asui, and Aoyama, all bloody and wounded like some gladiator." His expression shortly turned serious as he muttered, "It was morbid." And then he lit up once again. "But really cool. About yesterday." Shinso hopped in on the conversation. "What happened at the end? Like, I wasn't close enough, but I could still hear and see you. And it was just, what the fuck was that, honestly? What even is your quirk?" "Oh, Isuku glanced at Katsuki for help, but the blonde looked furthest from being interested in the conversation. In fact, he looked more interested in figuring out how to kill Kaminari, who was invading his personal space, and get away with it. My quirk, it's I don't really know how to explain it." Izuku sighed, mentally cursing his stutters and lack of words when required. It's like a game, but far more powerful. "My mom's quirk is game-based, but I don't think I've seen anything this strong," Shinso muttered. "That's cool." Yeah, and his voice at the end was just mind-blowing. "I was so scared I couldn't move." It was like several speaking at once, Kiyoshima added, "and the entire place was shaking just from your voice." "Is that what happened?" Ojo asked with a confused look. "I'm sorry, Midoriya. I have no idea what's going on. I was trapped all the way in the city disaster area." "It's fine." Itsuku was honestly glad. The further they were, the safer they had been. "By the time we reached the plaza, everything was already over," Mina said with a pout. "But Hawks came to save us. He just swooped in from the sky and beat all the villains' asses." "Huh? Hawks was there?" Ichigo tilted his head. He had absolutely no recollection of any other heroes being present apart from his dad and 13. Yeah, Zero nodded. Along with all the UA teachers, he frowned slightly. Don't you remember? Itsuki nervously glanced around. Everyone seemed to have drawn into the conversation. Even Yayorozu and Todoroki, who were the furthest from him, sitting at their respective seats. However, from the way their bodies were turned towards Isuku, and they kept glancing ever so often at them, Isuku knew they were paying attention to the conversation. I don't really remember much of the fight. I guess I hit my head too hard. He had tried rewatching the supposed fight against Sonomu and Shigaraki, but even his system didn't have any recording of it. It was like his mind had completely shut off during the period of time, working purely on emotions and instincts. The school bell rang just as the door slid open and his dad walked in. All of Isuku's trains of thoughts derailed as he watched his dad enter the room. He was dumbfounded. His dad wasn't supposed to leave bed for at least 3 days. But at the same time, he wasn't too surprised that his dad came to teach despite his injuries. He was kind of expecting it to happen, and he was a little glad he did. Sensei, should you really be here? Your injuries haven't healed, Ida asked, sounding concerned. Glad to see you well, Sensei, Kirishima chirped. If you can call that well, Jiro muttered. My welfare isn't of importance, Shota said. Isuku, who had been digging in his bag for his notebook, whipped his head up so fast he almost gave himself whiplash. Nonetheless, he stared at his dad in a way that clearly said, "Excuse me, what?" Shota pointedly refused to look in his direction as he continued speaking. Because your fight isn't yet over. Huh? Itsuku frowned. Are there more villains? Because Shota moved something on the table with his casted arm. The UA Sports Festival is fast approaching. That's so ordinary, someone exclaimed. Itsuku didn't pay too much attention to it, too surprised by the fact that Nezu decided to continue with the sports festival despite the recent attack. Itsuku collected his books and pens and stuffed them in his bag once the bell rang. Since the announcement during the homeroom period, Itsuku couldn't help but stew over the topic afterwards. He barely paid enough focus during classes. His mind was too busy being a terrified and concerned mess. Half of him was trying to shrug off the terror from yesterday, and the other half was trying to figure out why Nezu thought continuing with the sports festival that's the way they get internship offers. But still, from what little Isugu knew about Nezu, he was sure the principal would never do anything that would risk. Midoriya, going for your elective classes? Zero asked, hopping out of his seat with his bag behind him. Isugu flinched slightly at his quick movement. Huh? Oh, yeah. Zero looked hesitant as he rubbed. It's probably pretty late to ask right now, but are you okay? After yesterday? Yeah, Itsuki replied reflexively. Zero frowned a little. Are you sure? It's just you've been looking really nervous since morning and deep in thought. Have I? Itsuki let out an awkward laugh. I didn't realize. Guess I'm tired from being healed by Recovery Girl. It wasn't entirely a lie. He was tired, but not because of Recovery Girl's quirk, but because he couldn't get any rest after coming from finishing his penalty. Yeah, I get it, Zero said. I couldn't even sleep last night. He pulled out a chocolate bar from his pocket. Well, have this. My sister likes to eat chocolate bars whenever she's upset, so I just carry around one with me, Zero said, though she doesn't know that. Itsuki looked down at the chocolate bar. Fear Resistance had been online for unknown reasons since he woke up, and it was draining away his energy at a steady rate. He could use some sugar right now. Oh, thanks. Itsuki took the bar with a polite smile. Don't mention it, Sarah smiled. And, thanks for saving us yesterday. We were so scared we couldn't even think. If it wasn't for you and Sensei, we'd probably be in more trouble. La 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 la. Zero clamped his hands over his ears. I won't hear any denial. Take the thank you, man. You were a hero yesterday. Ichigo pressed his lips together in a thin line and nodded. Thanks. Zero flashed another bright grin before heading back to his seat and chatting with Kirishima and Kaminari. Ichigo clutched onto the chocolate bar and headed out of class. Zero's words rolled in his mind as he tried to convince himself, but as he did, a bitter taste filled his mouth. Ichigo knew Zero didn't lie to him. He generally meant what he said, but to Isuku, it felt like a lie. He wasn't a hero. He did the bare minimum. People were hurt. Someone could have died. Things weren't okay. He wasn't okay. He shook his head to get rid of the thoughts. Right now, he had a class with Nezu, and he wanted to ask him about the decision regarding the sports festival. If Nezu sensed that his mind was clouded with other thoughts, the Chimera would immediately start to deduce what he was thinking, study him like a science experiment, dissect his brain open and read him like a book. Ichigo would rather not have to go through that today, because he knew Nezu would catch onto the uneasy feeling in his chest, and Ichigo was not prepared to deal with it yet. He was not prepared to hear it out loud, because hearing it out loud would make it so much more real, and he wouldn't be able to take it. Just like any other time, the door to Nezu's office slid open by itself the moment he was close to it. Ichigo flinched slightly at the sound of the door fitting into the gap between the walls. Technically, there was no fixed room where Nezu taught him. Ichigo would be informed an hour before the class started, and it could be anywhere on the premises. What's left open the possibility Ichigo might have to run across the campus if Nezu decided to take his class somewhere else. Ah, Midoriya! Nezu chirped happily from his seat. Good morning. Good morning, Sensei. Ichigo said, bowing slightly as he stepped into the room. The door once again closed behind him on its own. Ichigo could never figure out how it worked. There weren't any sensors, like the automatic doors like the ones in the mall and offices. Please, take a seat, Nezu said. His smile was a little sharper than usual, which meant he had questions and Ichigo had nowhere to run. Would you like some tea? Yes, please, Ichigo said as he took a seat. Perfect, Nezu chimed. No intelligent conversation is ever complete without some good tea. I'm screwed. Ichigo could never imagine that something as simple as pouring tea could be intimidating, but here he was, nervously waiting in his seat, trying to make himself as small as he could, feeling like a helpless prey. I'm sure you have questions, Nezu started as he pushed the cup and saucer towards him. I believe Aizawa did announce the news about the sports festival? Yes, Itsuku nodded. There was no point in being hesitant for talking to Nezu. Chances are, if you had thought about it, Nezu already knows. Is it really okay? If you would kindly elaborate on that question, Midoriya, Nezu requested. I mean, I'm not saying your decision was wrong, but is it really okay to host a festival that is watched by thousands of people right after the attack? Midoriya asked. Isn't it risky? It is, Nezu answered. However, there are other factors involved as well. Is it about the image of the school? Ichigo asked. Not quite. It's about symbolism, Midoriya, Nezu explained. UA is more than just a high school, and the sports festival is more than just an event. As much as it brings me displeasure to say this, but UA has unfortunately been infiltrated twice. There is an obvious enemy targeting us, but we can't afford to stray from the usual, because the moment we do, it'll be a sign of showing weakness. We have no idea what kind of enemy is targeting us, why they are targeting us, because while yesterday's attack may have been to harm All Might, the one before it was not. Ichigo did have an inkling of doubt, but Nezu just confirmed it. There was no way the press was able to get into UA's grounds, despite the gates being closed. Someone had to help them. And the gates, Itsuku mumbled. It had been disintegrated. He hadn't seen it for himself, but he had overheard some of the faculty members and senior students talking about it. The villain from yesterday had a disintegration quirk. Yes, Nezu nodded, a glimmer in his eyes. I have reasons to believe that the incident from yesterday wasn't an actual attack. They were testing us. And if they are, and we were to show any signs of weakness, they might just attack us, and for real this time. The attack from yesterday was just a test? What? Itsugu frowned with confusion. And like I said, UA is more than just a high school. Parents send their students here with complete belief in our ability to keep them safe and help them grow into heroes. And so, if UA was to cancel the sports festival, it would make UA look vulnerable, and it would break their trust in us, Itsugu cut in. Yes, and it's not something we can afford, Nezu finished. But what about the student safety? Itsugu asked. Nezu grinned, all teeth and edges like a predator. You don't have to worry about that, dear Midoriya. I have taken care of it. Itsugu shuddered. He had no idea what Nezu did, but he was sure of one thing. No one would be able to forcefully enter UA like they had in the past. But of course, variables were always a thing. By the time his elective class with Nezu was over, Itsuku was dead on his feet. Today, Nezu had made him do timed challenges, with problems getting progressively difficult with each question. And while Nezu didn't scold him or demoralize him for failing a few questions, his politeness stung Itsuku anyways. Itsuku knew Nezu wouldn't think less of him if he messed up a few questions, but it was hard to take his kindness when he couldn't solve the questions. It made him feel quietly and upset. From early in the morning, he was physically exhausted, and now he was mentally exhausted as well. He wanted nothing more than to crash somewhere safe and secured, but he couldn't. He still had 3 more classes after break, including Fundamental Heroics with All Might. Midoriya! Itsuku mentally sighed with slight frustration upon hearing Uraka's bubbly voice, before quickly regretting it and feeling guilty. Uraka had done nothing wrong. She didn't know he was exhausted and didn't do anything to receive his irritation. So he sucked in a deep breath to calm his mind and turned around to greet his friend. Uraka, I was looking for you. I wanted to eat lunch with you if that's okay. Uraka chirped her usual enthusiasm. Ida was looking for you as well. Now Itsuku felt even worse because Uraka was just so sweet and didn't deserve his annoyed behavior. Midoriya, Ida greeted with a polite bow. Honestly, Itsuku wanted to say no and go find some corner to take a nap, but he couldn't refuse Ida and Uraka without feeling horribly guilty, so Itsuku, my dear boy. Itsuku jumped in surprise, activating his quirk out of pure instinct at the sudden loud voice. His chest rose and fell heavily as he jumped a few steps back to create distance between whoever was coming. He pulled Uraka and Ida behind him and stood in front of them to create a barrier. He needed them to stay close by so he could protect them. And wait, why would a villain call me dear boy? Itsuku blinked. The loud voice, the name, and the words finally registered in his mind. He blinked and found himself staring at All Might's surprised stature. Immediately, Itsuku loosened his offensive. He looked behind him to find his friends equally surprised, watching him silently with wide eyes and a dry mouth. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to. I got surprised and Itsuku started struggling to find words to explain his action. But he himself had no idea what just happened and why he did what he did. There were so many things baffling his mind. Things that didn't sit right with him. Like he hadn't heard All Might coming come behind him, which never happened. He could always hear All Might's footsteps from meters away. He didn't even recognize his voice right away, and the sheer loudness of it had taken him by surprise. Acting lightly, it was my fault to have surprised you like that. Yeah, it's fine, Midoriya. You just got spooked. Uraka smiled. Your mind took the sudden stimulus as a threat, and your immediate reaction was to protect your comrades. Ida pushed his glasses up. It's rather commendable, Midoriya. Ichigo didn't know what to feel anymore. He was tired and scared, confused and alert, guilty and frustrated. If you wouldn't mind, my dear boy, would you like to have lunch with me? All Might asked. Ichigo glanced at his friends. Oh, don't mind us. You can go ahead, Uraka said, waving her hand in front of her face. We get to see you in class anyways. Yeah, it's fine, Midoriya. Yes, it's fine, Midoriya, Ida said. It would be disrespectful to All Might if you were to reject his invitation. If you say so, Ichigo hesitantly mumbled. Thank you, younglings, All Might said before turning around to walk to the teacher's room. Ichigo waved goodbye to his friends before jogging to catch up to All Might. All Might, I'm sorry about what I did earlier. Ichigo stuttered. It's completely fine, my boy. You don't have to explain yourself, All Might said in a softer voice. You look rather exhausted. I shouldn't have spoken so loudly earlier. I'm so sorry, Ichigo mumbled. I accept your apology if it makes you feel better, my boy. Now tell me, would you like to rest somewhere? All Might asked. Ichigo ignored the looks he was getting from the other students as they walked down the corridor, too tired and exhausted to be conscious of it. Yes, please. If I'm not wrong, Aizawa isn't currently in the teacher's room, but his sleeping bag is still there, All Might said. Ichigo immediately perked up. It is? Yes. Can I go get it? Ichigo asked. I'll wait right here, All Might said, opening the door to the faculty room that was barely ever used. Ichigo blinked in silent surprise as he looked around. Pitch black darkness stretched around him endlessly. He couldn't see any walls or edges, making it hard for him to gauge his location. Dad? Ichigo called. He had no idea why he was looking for Shota, but something told him he had been with him just earlier before getting separated. Dad, where are you? He took a step forward only to stumble. The sound of something splashing echoed after his step. He looked down in confusion and found dark-colored liquid reaching up to his ankle. It was only then that sticky wetness registered around his feet. What? The strong smell of copper attacked his nose. Panic rose in him in surges. His breath quickened as his heart started speeding in his chest. Dad, Ichigo called once again as he started running. Dad, where are you? The more he ran, the higher the blood rose until it reached up to his waist. His lungs burned and eyes stung with unshed tears as he looked around desperately. He had been looking for Shota for ages, and yet he couldn't find him. The uneasy feeling inside of his chest kept growing and growing. He felt like something horrible had happened, and he needed to find Shota as soon as he could. Something told him that he couldn't be able to breathe until he could. Suddenly, he spotted a dry land in the distance, and as soon as he spotted it, he started running once again. Dad, where are Isuku? Isuku woke up with a gasp, eyes flying open. He tried moving only to find his limbs restricted in his panic-muddled mind. He felt like he let out a strangled cry, trying to free himself from whatever was restricting him, and Isuku, breathe. A hand pressed against his forehead. It was warm, calloused, and gentle, and the voice he recognized. Isuku gasped once again and stilled. He was gasping for air as his brain finally registered his surrounding. He felt restricted because he had been sleeping inside of his dad's sleeping bag. He hadn't even realized when he fell asleep. The warmth and softness of the sleeping bag had knocked him out right away. Dad? Ichigo blinked away the tears from his vision, and once his vision cleared, he saw Shota in front of him, crouching. Yes, I'm here, Shota answered. His face was as impassive as ever, and yet it was the most comforting sight to Isuku. Isuku let out a strangled sound as he wiggled his hand to a position from where he could open the zip of the sleeping bag. And once he was free, Isuku sat up, breathing heavily. What happened? Itsugu asked. You were crying in your sleep, Shota replied. I tried waking you, but you wouldn't wake up, All Might added, sounding concerned. You had a nightmare, Shota informed. Itsugu was silently grateful to it, because he couldn't think straight through his fear-clouded mind. Do you remember what it was about? Itsugu tried to recall, but all he remembered was a horrible feeling coiling in his chest. It came to what he had felt when the telepathetic connection had been forcefully broken. No, that's okay, Shota said comfortingly. Is the break over? Isugu asked, trying to steer the conversation away from his nightmare. No, there's still 10 minutes left, Shota replied. If you want to rest for a while longer, I can write you a note to go to the infirmary. No, it's fine. Itsugu shook his head. Where do you have class next? I got heroics class with 2B, Shota replied. And then I'm coming to your class to look over heroics with All Might. Oh, okay. A phone pinged and Shota grunted as he checked his phone. Nazu's calling. There's a meeting. Ah, I got it as well, All Might said. Oh, Isugu slipped off the couch. I'll head back to my class then. Are you sure? Shota asked. Itsuku considered it and decided he would rather not be alone, and spending time with his friends might help distract himself. Yeah, if you need me, let me know. Shota stood up, albeit hesitantly, and bumped his casted arm on his head once again. Itsuku was starting to think that it was substitute for the usual hair ruffles, okay? Itsuku suppressed the urge to ask him to stay and nodded with a smile. Okay. Alright, guys. That is the end of this chapter. That was a lot. I hope you enjoyed. Sorry for any stuttering or mispronunciations. Bye.